All right, so let's try this out. I'm not going to go live because going live, then Facebook owns the content, and I can distribute it more ways this way. So no, I'm going to open this up to 1 Corinthians 13. Some background of why I feel like this is so important. And yesterday I was in a really interesting argument with my wife about how I feel, take care, present myself to the world. And she accused me of not loving myself or something like that. It's not exactly that. But I said, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm learning how to do that. It's been a challenge. Nobody teaches you how to properly love yourself and take care of yourself. So 1 Corinthians 13. And now I will show you the most excellent way. If I speak in the tongue of men and of angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have a gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. Now we see a poor reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Such a deep passage. What do I know about love? Let's go. Yes. What I've learned about love, I've learned from my family and my marriage. My wife, pretty much, as I believe is the case with most women, men in the Western world, instruct on the ways of love, when and how to open one's heart. And through what I've understood about the chakras, touch is how the heart originally opens. In human contact, human connection, we need that touch. And with this coronavirus and the quarantine, one of my friends posted that the thing she missed most was hugging. And without touch, hugging, love, and fear of human contact, brains don't properly fully develop and form. And there was a study about this a while back. I forget where. I'm sure you could Google it. You could see that. And so it's an essential for human development. And I've had a tough marriage. We've experienced a lot of hardships. 2 kids on the autism spectrum. I was in a car accident back in 2009. Both of my legs were broken. Had to relearn how to walk and try to put my life back together into some sort of order. Well, let's get a drink. Ooh, a lot of heat. Yeah, putting my life back in some order, you know, I tried to will my way back to work in the way I used to be, even though I was clearly different physically and even internally, where I took a lot of painkillers to will my way to work, ignored my pain, and I would come home and be miserable. I felt empty. I was looking for something to fill me up. And then at some point, I believe when my son was diagnosed with autism, it broke my heart in a way that I can't even describe. It was like a death. You could hear him in the background. It was an absolute death. And I sort of realized that I had a choice to make. It was, I could keep my job, I could get divorced, or I could look for a new way to work and put myself back together. Plus, you know, look for ways to save my marriage and my family. So I sacrificed that. I gave up a job, which I identified with greatly, very personally. You know, I was I loved having the name Blackstone somewhere I worked. I love having Steinman at Blackstone email address. It meant a lot to me. And it hurt. And from that, it's about 5 years ago in December 2014, yeah, so 5 and change. But about till recently, I started to realize, you know, it was the right choice. It wasn't any good choices in that situation, but it was the right sacrifice. And you know, with the love in the heart, it has a lot to do with development and unfolding of the soul and creativity. And how I've learned about that is there's, you know, through suffering and the understanding of suffering and the release of suffering. Dog, go for the camera. Oh. And we're down again. You know, I came upon this Thich Nhat Hanh book, No Mud, No Lotus. And it's with these more underbelly, you know, like below the heart emotions, where is like the fuel for soul growth. And with the lotus or the rose come 3 basic principles. You know, first there's knowledge. You know, you're learning and acquiring how the world works. And then you apply that into the world, creating value for people. That's knowledge in action, love. And then you could share that with other people. And you give it away, which is sacrifice. So those 3 principles, you have knowledge, love, and sacrifice. And for sacrifice. A lot of people get sacrifice moral. People try to change their habits, change their job, impose a change. Like me with this job, I'm going to will myself to improve myself in some way, and without addressing the root fundamental core issue lovingly. And I failed because I didn't have enough love in my heart to be able to properly take care of myself and be a friend to myself within the situation. I pretended nothing was wrong. And a good example of this in popular culture, I believe, is Tony Stark. Tony Stark in the Infinity War movies, he had all this knowledge, right? And he would sacrifice himself as an Avenger. But then, the ultimate sacrifice was only when he developed love, and he was the right person to do it, where he had a family, he had a wife, he had a family, he filled himself up, and he had to go out and give up from himself. And then from that sacrifice, he saved everybody within the story. It's a bit of a idealistic depiction of love, maybe a childish way, but I think it paints the picture of the three petals of the rose very, very well. And with love, we also have the goddess Venus, or Aphrodite. And Venus, or Aphrodite, rules the law of attraction. But then she also has a lot to do with the shadow side of the law of attraction, which is the law of repulsion. We're attracted to experiences that make us feel good, to beauty. But then the repulsion is bad experiences. We push away. We're judging things, this or that. I like this, I like that, or I don't like that. And what we push away, it always comes back. There's something in the Bible about focus your eyes on the unseen, because what is seen is temporary and the unseen is eternal. And when we're pushing away things that we don't constantly want to look at, we guarantee that they're going to constantly and consistently return to us in ways that we don't want, because we don't want. But if we find and develop enough, the Buddhist perspective on this is a Maitri. Enough, we befriend ourselves and learn to take care of ourselves, and we can have the right knowledge and the right view on how to handle situations where we don't want to deal with. Usually buried in our habitual patterns and our day-to-day life and our subtle actions. In my own marriage, something that comes up is I leave, and I'm seeing if I'm doing it. No, actually close it. I leave drawers open, cabinets open. Let's see, did I leave any cabinets open? Good, I didn't. I was a good boy today. Excellent. Check plus for me. That when you leave them open, or that when my wife would go crazy, she's like, "How dare you do this?" And when I get attacked like that, or anybody gets attacked like that, you want to defend it because it feels like it hurts, and you want to push that away. It's like, don't hurt me. You're my enemy, and you push them away, and you come back and you're logical. You come up with all sorts of reasons of why I'm justified right doing this. I'd be like, I'm doing 8 million things at once. I'm not good multitasking, which is true. Nobody's really a good multitasker. Everyone thinks they are. But it's a point, and deep within my patterning is I'll try to take on too much without finishing everything, and then ends up nothing gets done. A lot of things get started, big mess. Things are sprawled out everywhere. So then from there, it's like I've had to learn through meditation to slow down and feel my body, feel my feet on the ground, and where I'm tightening up. Like my shoulder sometimes would go like this when I'm stressed, and it's anger, rage that wants to come out and express itself. And I've learned through sitting, I could breathe into it. I could give myself a nice belly rub, like, yes, it's all right there. And I feel better with that doing it already. You find some spaciousness within this situation. And from there, next time it happens, I could see it and not self-harm myself afterwards with that. I find what would be most addictive would be indulging the pattern and saying over and over again, yep, you're a fucking idiot, you're a piece of shit, you're a failure. And I've learned to stop, see it, and get a little bit of relief from the situation. Be like, all right, I didn't do it that time. Next time I could do it. Next time I'll be on top of it. I won't be, I'll be a good friend to myself and to my partner, where, this stresses her out. And I've learned through one of my teachers, who's also a couples therapist. He would talk to me about, he would see my wife and I in this heated conflict. And he said something like, he diagnoses Jewish, and he's like, it's like a knife in your belly, and you've got to learn how to embrace her when she's like that. When you're being a knife in your belly, he's like, I do it all the time. I have scars all over me to prove it. And he said this in such a vicious, loving, visceral way that I understood it. I got it. It's like what a woman needs to feel safe within a marriage. And there's like a great spiritual truth in there too, about the relationship between the conscious and the unconscious. It plays out very much in a male-female dynamic, where the male has an unconscious female side, and the female has this unconscious masculine side. And the male's unconscious side is much like Venus, having to learn how to make conscious of the ability to receive, to feel. And the woman, the masculine Mars side, has to get conscious of the ability to attack and assert oneself. And my teacher here, Bernie, would say that he's like, Fred, you have the ability to change, transform the situation at will. It's like, she just needs love. And that starts with me befriending myself. What else is there to talk about? Such a complex subject. And something about these times, where a lot of people losing their jobs, and jobs have a lot to do with our habits, or how we go about our day. And much like me 5 or so years ago, it's a lot. We project our identity onto it. It's like a shadow of our identity. And when we lose that, the universe, it's proven scientifically, hates empty space. All sorts of junk pops up. And a particular piece of junk that we all have is what's called, when it really comes up from the cellar, as it will, you get what's called neurosis. And neurosis is defined to me, or taught to me, as it's a survival pattern where at some point in the past, it protected us, but then it no longer has any functional use in the current situation. So it's an old memory of the past. And I'm scared for, I don't know if scared is the right word, but concerned that a lot of people are going to be feeling all this right now, And when it comes up, it's like a hyper exaggerated sensation or feeling within the body that, like, it could be a fluttering in the fingers, it could be a tickle in the ribs, and then would come along with it some sort of thought, or that's the feeling, like the tickle in the ribs, and then would come sort of a image or a thought that would eventually translate into some sort of action that it's contemporaneous, it's out of time and out of place. And right now I feel like there's people out there with the news stories that are manipulating a lot of people within to these situations, because we as a human species have a lot of unresolved trauma out there. And we could, if we're not aware of that, could easily be manipulated and herded into a situation where we become very mechanical. We're being pulled by our neurotic habit patterns in some way. This isn't going out to most people like that. A lot of people I'd imagine who'd be watching this video, people who've developed some sort of ability to love. And developing love is a muscle of compassion. In compassion, you learn how to suffer with somebody and to deal with them and relate to them, as we could be, as Bernie defined it with me, living, breathing pieces of shit sometimes. That we all have this, we all bleed red, we all poop. And that realization leads to some sort of sense of basic goodness, basic inherent dignity that we can't be taken away from. And from that we could build on love. And somebody with an open heart, love within a crowd, speaking some sort of common sense and basic goodness, can dispel some sort of this projection of the past. Wake people up to reason and, hey, what's going on at hand? Like a little clap of the hands. And from there comes, over time, enlightenment. For that to happen, people got to be ready to see it. They got to be open to it. And crises can lead time to that for certain people. There's a story that comes to mind about that, where a teacher, Talopa, was instructing his disciple Naropa, who eventually lead on to open one of the root gurus of Tibetan Buddhism in Tibet, where my teacher's teacher, Chogyam Trungpa, came from, that lineage. They talked about, what was the situation? I think Naropa was like leaning into Tilopa for some sort of instruction, and Tilopa took off his shoe and smacked him right across the face. And at that moment, he became enlightened because he was ready for it. And that's part of the mystery of love. You know, there's, in Tantric Buddhism, the highest point of practice is the relating directly to a teacher. There's a very special relationship where it's like two people share one mind. It's almost like lovemaking in some way, but in a very spiritual sense. And the teacher is very much with this law of attraction, law of repulsion, where you stand close enough, you get nice and warm. But you get too close, you're gonna get burned in some way. You're gonna see a side of the teacher perhaps you weren't ready for, and it will frighten you. I know I've run across that a few of my teachers. It's delightful and horrifying. All right, I've talked 26 minutes on this. There's one other thing I wanted to say. With St. Paul, he's a fascinating character where he was an assassin originally assigned to kill off the disciples and apostles of Christ. And on the road to Damascus, he had a vision or a dream where he saw a resurrected Jesus, and he went blind. And it converted him. It changed his heart, and he changed his name from Saul to Paul. Probably, people, it was taught to me through church that it was a sign of spiritual conversion. I'm like, no, he's just trying to evade execution. It's very practical. Paul was a very practical guy, a builder. And with, right now, a lot of people have been talking about they've had these dreams, like really, really strong dreams coming up. And these dreams are something, deep within us that's emerging. And, the whole purpose of seeing all these dreams is to wake up. We see it. We're like, there's a deep pattern in there for me. And I'm supposed to see it, work with it, deal with it if necessary. And if there's any sort of emotional pull one way or the other, deal with it. If it's neutral, just love it and let it go.